to the SPL. And chat, quick question for you. Have you ever been put into a situation where you're meant to compare favorably to Dave Dolson Olson? Well, that's exactly the situation I'm in, and I just realized I'm woefully inadequate. The only thing bringing me any kind of comfort in this moment is indeed my Maxonomic chair, which I'm currently chilling in. Pick one of those up too, and forget all about the ways that you're not good enough for the people around you. Finch and Miff are going to be the ones here on the desk. Go to needforseat.com, use code SMITEMAX, and pick up one of those chairs. Get the word skin too, brag for those other people around you. Now I can talk about how Finch and Miff are the ones that are here on the desk, because we've got another good set coming up here next. It'll be Sanguine versus PK. Miff, how you doing, buddy? Feeling as good as I am today?
Well, how could I not be, Finch? I'm in this dope Maxonomic chair. You guys can't see it. I'm a bold, big body. But you know what? It doesn't matter. We're going to be talking about PK up against Sanguine. And you know what? I'm excited.
Me too. Let's take a look at the games that we've already had up until this point. The upset day that was Friday, the upheaval that was Friday. Obey United getting wins over Radiant and Sanguine, two of the best teams that we have. Then coming into Saturday, Ghost was able to take care of SSG, and now we've got the next big matchup to take a look at here. PK trying to see if they can improve from the 5th place standings that they currently find themselves in, up against Sanguine, who are 4th place. A great battle right in the middle of the pack here amongst all those teams that we have here in the SPL, and one that I think is going to be pretty hard to call either direction, but perhaps PK do have enough here in the tank to try and get this win.
PK in recent weeks has really got the moniker of gatekeeper to the top. It's been a while since we've seen them take a game off one of these top-seeded teams, but they are so consistently able to shut down the bottom that it really just feels like it's a matter of time, right? I think that when I watch PK, it almost feels like they're treating this online phase leading up into LANs as more practice. They're always playing something new. They're always experimenting with what works. They're trolling around like this, using Neil Ma's Riptide just to troll Cuvo just a little bit. But I think that these guys definitely have a lot of top-end potential. It's whether or not they're willing to show it. I think they really are a team that likes to keep secretive with what's best for them.
Well, I think if you're a PK fan, you're probably hoping that's what's going on, right? That they're keeping some stuff in reserve. Because this is a squad that I think is a little bit better than what we've seen from them, right? There have been a lot of situations where they have not looked competitive up against the top-end teams, but we know they have it in them. They showed it to us last year when they won Worlds, and they went on that crazy run. Neil has a lot more than what we normally see out of him on a day-to-day basis. Belair has the potential to be the best solo laner that we have when he's firing on all 5 cylinders. It's just, are they firing on all 5 cylinders? Well, a great test for that is Sanguine, the team that's lining up across from them and gonna make life difficult for them. They just came off a shell-shocking loss to United. Not your fault. Everybody loses to Baskin on that one. So all you can do is try and shake it off, recover, and make sure that you're ready for this next set. Perhaps Wrong You can be the center of that here today.
I think Wrong You is the right person to highlight. This guy is so absolutely consistent on that support role. He's one of the last true supports in the league, always playing this facilitator play style. He waits for the late game. He's not really the flashiest player we've ever seen, but he is so highly consistent. His God pool runs deep with unique picks. Not many people are bringing out the Terra. Not many people at all are playing the Horus, despite us thinking coming into Season 7 that it was going to be a top contested pick. This guy is able to play just about anything that his team needs. He'll fit the role no matter what the comp needs.
And they make a scary frontline combination, don't they? Wrong You paired with Yarkor. Good luck. No wonder Shito's always looking so good. How are you going to get past all of that? The answer is most times you don't. And Sanguine ended up taking the game away from you in the late game where their team fight is just superior. The problem is PK is also very comfortable going late game and trying to win with their team fight. So kind of a mashing of the class is going to be happening here in this one. Excited to see what's going to happen. The one, though, who gets to talk about it is Wrong You. We had him standing by for that interview.
We are now down here with Wrong You, of course, the Guardian support for Sanguine. We're talking to him about his matchup up against the Pittsburgh Knights today. First of all, Wrong You, there's been some downtime for all of the teams. You guys had an off week. How did your team spend the time? And it's probably nice to step back, get some downtime, and take a bit of a breather.
Yeah, we actually tried to take a break from practicing or playing the game, but we thought that it was a better idea to keep just grinding, keep screaming, just playing the game all the time, because we're here in Atlanta to play the game.
Hey, I had a feeling you guys would say that. We know that you guys love the grind, and the performances certainly show here in the SPL. You'll be going up against the Knights here this week, fresh off the bye week. It's the second time you faced them so far this year. It was a 2-0 when you guys played them earlier on in this phase. Do you think the confidence still sides with you? You feeling good going into this matchup?
Yeah, I think is a team that we can beat every time. I don't know. I just feel like we can play better than them, or
Mhm.
but for example with another team like Gauls, you can't say that because they have like early pressure or
Right.
whatever. But PK is like a regular team that you can beat in team fight or whatever because they can just surprise you like other teams.
How do you feel about, and maybe that's sort of to your point, how do you feel about the long lane here in this matchup, yourself and Nitroid, of course, versus Neil and Zapman? Do you feel comfortable in that lane? Like you can do your job in sort of controlling the pace of things?
Yeah, I think Salman is a good ADC. I don't know. I think he's just smart because he's been playing the game for a long time. But yeah, I
Right.
feel pretty confident, but I don't want to get too confident
Of
because
course.
Salman is a good player.
That's right. It's a good mindset to have. Kind of final thoughts, obviously not in your role, but Tsukiyomi now is going to be available in these games. Do you think that's a god pick we should maybe start expecting to see? Is that something you guys on Sanguine have prepared for?
Yeah, I think he's broken. I think I saw his ult doing like 1,000 damage in late game. It was like, what? Why is he doing that? I don't know. It's just
That's a lot.
so yeah.
He does a good bit of damage. All right, so maybe whether he's banned out or picked up, definitely something we should have on our minds. Well, Wrong You, thanks so much for sitting down with me. Best of luck in this matchup, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you.
It is so difficult not to like these Sanguine guys, huh? Just an honest and confident group of guys letting us hear it right off the dome. Thanks, Rogu, for taking the time to talk to us. And we're about to take some time to hop into these picks and bans for game number 1. Now, Mifflin, I do want to ask you real quick here. Rog, you said PK is a team they think they can beat every time. How do you like that kind of confidence about their matchup here?
I love it, Finch. The raw confidence
Me
coming out from
too.
Rock. My man speaks through the filter. He's removed it completely. They're just a regular team. We can just beat them in the team fight. They're just nobodies to the Sanguine boys. I mean, the raw, palpable disrespect that is not only brought forth through his interview, but through their playstyle. Yarkor will dance on your corpse. Wrong You will laugh spam on your Titan. And they've earned that right because they're constantly winning. I love it. The Sanguine boys want to play the heel, and they've earned that right.
I think they have too, and I'm glad we're back in a world where Persephone's getting banned. I mean, you heard Sanguine say it about how strong they think Tsukiyomi is right now, and we know this is a team that if they think it is the best thing, they're going to play and pick it, and then they're going to think you made a mistake for not taking it from them. So I expect Tsukuyomi, Persephone, some of these strong picks to be in their pick ban phase and coming out right away, and PK going to have to show us some kind of answer to that. I wonder if Cuvo might end up with it. He's had kind of an up and down phase here so far, despite being one of our more seasoned and high-end players. I expect him to try and turn things around. Maybe that pick can do it for him.
Yeah, Cuvo has really had a quiet last couple of weeks. It seems like it's really that top end that we get to see when it's PK kind of dunking on the lower seeded teams. I'll call him the gatekeeper till the end of time, until they prove us wrong. It could be today, but it seems like he really is struggling to find impact on team fight phase with these assassins. I'd like to see him try and switch up his picks a little bit. Tsukiyomi is going to make it through that first phase of bans here. If PK doesn't take it, you know Sanguine will.
Yeah, it's a guarantee lock-in for Sanguine, but this might be even better than Tsukuyomi Yamoja, the Guardian, perhaps one of the best gods we've ever had in our game, with all that sustain, with all the lockdown she gets with the River's Rebuke, and the stuns as well. PK want that for Leo Ma. We highlighted him earlier. We talked about what an impact player he can be for PK, and now you're giving an impact god, too. He's going to have a lot to heal if Tsukuyomi's running around for Sanguine.
Look, I don't need to sing the praises of Yamoja because the stats do. 80% ban rate, 20% pick rate. That's 100%, guys. And then a 70% win rate on the top end of that. This guy just wins games. And yeah, my math is nuts. I've been practicing on the cast, counting up that gold. But they don't take the Tsukiyomi for Sanguine.
Wow.
They do still pick some top-seeded picks. The Amaterasu obviously going to go into that soul lane, or obviously very likely going into that soul lane. A ton of pressure, sustain, the ability to rotate into these team fights incredibly easily due to the movement speed in the kit. And then Rom, obviously one of those most highly contested hunter picks. It's very interesting that they decide to pass up on the Tsukiyomi. It tells me that they think PK either doesn't have it, or they still prioritize these picks higher.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I'll get to the PK hell pick for Paul in just a moment. Can you believe that Yarkor still hasn't gotten enough respect to where you're banning the Ama from him and not the Kakulin, right? I mean, that's what they're banning away from. Okay, we can talk about this hell. What a signature pick for Paul to take into the mid lane. And now, I wonder if maybe they are a little bit too committed to this sustain anti-heal. Going to be very strong for Sanguine. And yeah, we're going to go up and grab up the Tsukuyomi here as well. Surprising, I think, nobody.
With this much healing on PK's draft, they could likely, I'll hit that in a second, they could likely just go for the Ankh just to burn away some of the shielding coming through from the Emoja to deal with all the healing coming from Hell, Cupid as well. It seems like they may have gone a little bit heal heavy, but they're not sacrificing too much damage. Hell is a healer, but first and foremost, she is a mage. She's going to absolutely slam you in the early game. I think she's got nearly equivalent damage to a Hebo minus the crushing wave. This Terra pick though, man, that's nuts to me. This early on in your draft, are you really that worried that it's going to get banned out by PK? Sure, it's got the counter engage, but when you're playing against so much healing, you would think that you would want her to be able to run in, be that pure engage type of god, maybe something a little bit more aggressive like a warrior out of that support role. Sanguine has a plan. I can't wait to see it.
I'm excited to see it too. I wonder if it's going to involve Shinto piloting that Merlin that he's so comfortable on, considering PK are already considering him in their band. They ban away the Thoth, and then they ban away the Nemesis, and that's interesting. Panatom, I don't think has looked quite as good on the Nemesis as everyone else in the league has, so I don't know if I 100% love this ban for PK, but you do not want to deal with Nemesis if you can avoid it, and jungler like Panatom is going to eventually start hitting with it, but I mean, they could do Thor Merlin, which has been the combo that's worked for them since they joined the league.
Yeah, it's still interesting to me. They say that they think that Tsukuyomi is that busted pick. It still makes its way through the ban phase, but instead going for the Thor. Maybe they were just worried about being able to shut down the early game. They want someone that's going to be able to be highly mobile in these team fights. If people are escaping with low health and they have healing on their draft, that global ultimate from the Thor might be able to make up for some of that weakness. Chase down the Hell if she's 1% health. Finish her off there. But now Tsukuyomi going the way of PK, that's interesting.
Now it's in the hands of Cuvo Fred. Really what's happening is we're forgetting how Galaxy Brain Sanguine are. They do that pregame interview. PK hears it, feels like they have to grab Tsukuyomi. Sanguine, on the other hand, think he's trash. Not worried about that pick at all. Just a classic bait. They're doing here to PK. I doubt that's going to be the call here for him, but Hera now coming through too. So Shinto changing things up a little bit. But how do you like how this is going to stack up against all this sustain from PK? Not a lot of control on PK's side, really relying on this Yamoja. Maybe that can be where Sanguine make up some of the deficit.
Yeah, PK, I would hesitate to call them CC Light just because Yamoja exists on their team comp. Tsukuyomi's got the stun as well. I mean, Yamoja's stun's not on a cooldown. Let's just put that out there for everyone at home. But I think that Hera has a decent matchup here. If you're worried about the dive potential that Hell's damage output can do, or what Tsukuyomi's going to do to you in the backline, drop your shield, immune out Tsukuyomi's ultimate, you know where he's landing, drop your bubble buddy on his head, crush his skull, and now Hera's looking pretty good with the polymorph on the tail end to make sure that Kusari Gama doesn't put her down. I think it's a good counter matchup into Tsukuyomi of itself, but the rest of Sanguine's draft is going to be highly contingent on how well they're going to be able to win the initial fight. If they allow PK to take separate engagements, back up, then heal, PK is going to be in their own wheelhouse.
And it's so much healing. I want to make sure that we say it again. It's Yamoja and Hell and Cupid Heart. This is a ton of sustain on the side of PK, an amount that's difficult to keep up with, as you said, if you don't win that initial fight. And even then, the initial fight going to be challenging because you're trying to fight through what healing is there, even through your anti-heal items and relics that you might have on board. PK and Sanguine, 4th and 5th seed, just so far in the picks and bans, I think living up to the billing here for this set.
It's going to be an interesting game, no doubt. PK brings something that fits their playstyle holistically. They love playing these healer drafts, so I think that's going to fit into them very well. Sanguine looked like they brought a very strong late-game team fight. That's about as Sanguine as it gets. But Sanguine did call PK just a regular team that you can beat every single time. Let's see if that rings true.
They got to follow those words up here. Wrong you writing checks. Let's see if they can cash them here in game number 1.
Thanks so much, Finch and Mifflin on the desk. Yes, let's see if they can cash them in game number 1, because this has been a bit of an awkward back and forth between the two, in my opinion. Gormaz is going to be joining me on the call here, and Gore, let's be honest real quick. I mean, I'm looking through the game, and honestly, with how things have gone between these two teams so far this year, PK is going to be in a bit of trouble, I feel like, today, because like the games yesterday caused a lot of problems.
Yeah, a lot of 2-0s in favor of Sanguine. 3 throughout the entire year, 2 in the first phase, 1 so far here. If you look at just the matchup and the way things have been going, Sanguine, well, they do look at the Knights as a regular team that they can just beat, right? I think that's something that Mifflin hit several times on the desk, but it's kind of accurate for what we've seen out of them. Every time they come in, they win it 2-0, and they do it in Sanguine fashion, right? It's not necessarily this stomp in 20 minutes. It's going to be their 25 to 30 minute, just Sanguine, hey, let's wait for the team fight, then we'll win after that point when we 5v5. But I think the Knights this time around have shifted things up just enough to tweak that late game more in their favor, and that's in the sense that they have so much sustain. It's almost ridiculous how much it's going to come through. There's a certain point where anti-heal is very effective, maybe against one healer. And then there's another point where it stops mattering because there's so much healing on the other side that you can't stop them enough. And I'm wondering if Knights hit that second threshold, right, where you have 3 different healers real to you.
Well, it's been a bit of a weird one too, if you really think about it, because the games yesterday with Obey winning and, of course, E United winning too, this has put more pressure on both these teams. Sanguine, a little bit raw, a little bit rusty, I would say, because they haven't played for a couple of weeks. Sure, we had the bye week the week before, but don't forget, Sanguine didn't get to play the week before that because their game against Radiance was postponed. So they've had a 2-week break, and Sanguine are looking a little bit rusty. However, PK have never actually managed to go 3 games since May of this year. All their games have been 2-0s. However, with that note, I'm going to go to a quick break. There's been a couple of issues. I'm going to jump on the hamster wheel real quick. When I get back, we'll be back in the action of the game. Get out of this timer! Get out of this timer! Okay, cool, we're back in game. Sorry about the wait there, boys and girls, but here we go. Gore and me are back once again to bring you the action between PK and Sanguine. We've done a little bit of talk already about, where these two teams really line up against each other, how PK have really kind of struggled to find anything more than a 2-game set for pretty much most of the season, if I'm honest, and how teams are now on their heels. But Go, what you were talking about more importantly is this game specifically. A lot of health on the side of PK, a lot of sustain. However, Sanguine, I really liked their team fight capability with this squad.
Yeah, it's really weird that we live in a world where whoever wins this game is just most likely, because it's a Knights set, to win the next one. And I'm still leaning towards Knights, even though historically all year it hasn't been their way, just because of all the sustain. And it just comes back to, there's a lot of anti-heal items and things that can help you out in a fight. But I feel like there is a certain point where no matter how much you throw at the Knights here, you could have 2 cursed Onks, and it's still not going to be enough to stop their healing unless you can, completely shut down Paul, and then afterward you also have to shut down Neil. Ideally you're getting both in one sweep, but it's not going to be the easiest thing. I mean, they're on 2 of the safest gods as well. Hell, usually easy to lock down, but because she has so much healing and survivability, Paul really doesn't have too much to worry about here, save for Panatom's Thor, which has been one of the saving graces of Sanguine, just all year. Since they've joined the league, this has been a great pick for him.
Well, I will say I was a bit surprised in the interview, Rongyou saying, he thinks Tsukuyomi's OP, and yet they let it go through the counter ban phase? What's he smoking? I want some, that's not fair! Like, he can't be saying things like that and then not following through with it, so I'm a little bit worried about that. Tsukuyomi maybe not, to see how Cubo Fred can really pilot it here today. And the AoE involved.
Yeah, I'm excited as well. Yesterday, I kind of got to watch glimpses of it as it came through and Sanguine were picking it up. But, one game where it did really well, one game where it didn't do well at all. I want to know where it's going to fall, and I think this set is going to be another good maybe heat check. Cubo has been in that position where he needs someone to really kind of step up and maybe help him along in the jungle. He's had some really great standout moments for the Knights, but sometimes some lackluster games as well. I think that just goes hand in hand when they have these 2 odes that they win, as well as those that they receive. So if he can find a good spot for the Tsukuyomi and just start popping off at any point in this game, then we'll start to see the Knights, I think, ramp up for a great league.
Well, you do see that Cursed Onk already available for Rongyou early on in this set. No real surprises. And I think it's one of the reasons we saw Terra drafted here, because she is someone in that support role that can, mix up her relics a little bit. She's not necessarily needing the blink as much as some of the other supports that you look to see for. So I think that Cursed Onk will come into play a lot more during these fights, especially if you think about how Sanguine are going to look to AoE team fight, Thor ult in with a Hera follow-up, and then have that Cursed Onk to make sure they can't re-sustain or take more poke. But as this one's being played out so far, I did notice Panitum was doing an okay job in the jungle early on here, get a bit more fun than his counterpart Cubo Fred, who just went to that right-hand side there to try and strip some away. Dual lane boxing out as to be expected. I don't think Zap and Neil, though, were really too concerned, as we mentioned how much sustain is here, about how much poke they take, just trying to whittle down those potions on both teams.
This is actually an interesting duo lane as well, because even though Rom doesn't bring his own sustain, Netrioid does have a Terra beside him. Not the best sustain to keep up with someone like a Yamoja, but it's still sustain that she's going to be able to bring. But also not someone who's done historically well. I mean, in Phase 2, I think she's been picked 6 times.
And the sky
most of those.
Comes down, Panitum, looking for the dunk, catches the wall, but the nice little use of that Riptide from Neil is keeping him top. Wow. Oh my goodness me, that pillar from Rongyou on point. Body block to death. Zap will not be happy about that one.
You see that ability used for healing, you see it used for lockdown, you don't often get to see Terra use it as a wall. And just a sliver of a block there to make sure that he stays in combat, no place for Cubo to go, I'm sorry, for Zapman to go there. And unfortunately, there's nothing you can do to fight back there. Cupid is not going to be able to get away, and that's what you need in this duo lane. Shut down the Cupid, slow down the Emoja, make sure their farm isn't going to keep up. If you get Netrioid comfortable and Rongyou in a position where he can start rotating, then things will coast into that 5v5 just fine for Sanguine.
Great decision from Panitom though. Hits 5, goes straight to Duro just before they hit 5-2, so they don't have those counter ultimates available, and keeps that pressure rolling. I do want to note as well, both junglers this game hold out fort though, feels a look down, Harp on 2, Netroid forced to use the beads, the Emojo going to keep him pinned in place, as now he takes to the sky. No rotation coming in from the junglers, so this is a straight 2v2 man mode, and Zapman, who started the engagement, is going to fall down for his second time this game. Netroid getting himself a kill.
And if Rongyu had just a little bit more mana, I honestly would expect a second one over there, but you can see the Knights recognizing what to do with it. I honestly wanted a little bit more. There's a nice grouping on the right-hand lane, but it looks like they're going to fall back. But, you know, it also comes into the conversation. Zapman, 0-2-0, he's down a level. This is where he starts to flourish, right? I mean, this is where all of a sudden the game becomes his. It's something that he's used to over there, and even though that this is going well so far for the duo lane, I think Netroid, as well as Zap, it's going to be that conversation of when they join a little bit later, right? When they come into these team fights and what they're bringing for that, because the carries, as much as I think their level difference is going to make, and we've seen them impact the team fight, they don't get into the fights this early, unless all of the skirmishes are in the duo lane. So until they start making those rotations, I'm a little timid to say that any lead is as good as it could be.
No, that's fair. I think a lot of the times, honestly, like gold leads in the early game don't surmount to as much as you expect. It's really around that 15-minute mark. If there's a lead and you're talking 4,000-5,000, you can really start to mention it there. The 2-3Ks for me as of late, Gore, haven't really been a big enough swing for me to close out a game. But at this level, with the season going on the way it is, I mean, we are now in the halfway point of Phase 2, as we're in Week 7 now, which means, you know, it's a 14-week split, this one. So with everybody playing each other 3 times, we do at least get a decider between all the teams. No one's going to really be able to have that 1-1 scoreline of win-lose, you know, across the season. It's going to have to come down to one team edges out the other. And honestly, PK, they need a big win here today in my book, especially with how I was mentioning E-United and Obey are now starting to find some pace.
Oh yeah, that's the scary part, right? If your Knights and Renegades, Obey, E-United continue to play the way they were, let's say, 3-4 weeks ago, you're not really that worried. You're solid 5th place, exactly where you were last year when you went into Worlds, and then you ended up winning. So you're not too stressed. You do still want to try and punch up. You want to take sets like this. You know, you're going against the person right next to you in the standings in Sanguine, so you want to try to take them down. But you're not too worried about it. Now United, Obey have stepped it up. If the Knights go down 2-0 here, then you have to start looking at where United truly stand. If they're able to knock down Sanguine, even if it takes them 2-1, and then you see the Knights get knocked out, we have to start looking at the bottom of the league in a completely different light. But this is also another one, you know, you're looking towards the end of this phase. As you'd mentioned, it's a long one, but you'll play each other 3 times throughout the entirety of it. And for the Knights, getting that 2-1, maybe a tiebreaker potential later on in the phase would be great for them over Sanguine, especially because right now, this is the one that's the closest realistic win for them, right? Maybe Radiance is in that zone too, but when you start looking at Ghost and SSG, it just hasn't been going too well in those matchups either, so the Knights really want this win.
Well, you saw a little bit of an invade from PK to the right-hand side there, trying to get a bit of pressure onto that blue buff out of Jakor, which is currently on cooldown right now. And that's where Kivo Fred's just trying to find a bit of a win. Things seem to have slowed down in the duo lane, is where Sanguine found some results, if I'm honest, mainly from the Panitom gank. But then PK's answers back came up flat and caused them a bit of an issue. But funny enough, they're down 2 kills, but the goal is still even, which just shows how well PK are doing at the farm game so far. As you can see across the board, it's a slight edge out there in terms of experience for most of the members.
Yeah, being able to pick up even slight level leads, especially in the support, I think it's been big for him.
Oh, that burst pressure, too much for Panitom. Too much coming out from the new Tsukiyomi added to the game there. No real chance to really turn it around. And I think that's the one danger they've got to watch out for is if Tsukiyomi can get in range, his damage output is a little bit on the stronger side.
And I like Panitom's reaction. You got to get out of there somehow. Unfortunately, when you root yourself, I think that makes it even easier. Those caltrops right on the ground, you're going to take damage from that as well. So Cuvo, I think, just got an easy burst mode there for that kill. And now is going to start opening up this conversation for watching Tsukiyomi versus Thor. I think the ult, at least from what we've seen out of Panitom and historically on this Thor, have been phenomenal. But so far, he's only really dunked down once. We need to see more, I want to say, proactive play out of Sanguine if they want to try to wrestle a lead away, because now it's definitely starting to fade away. It's still only 400 gold, not a ton at all, but for the Knights, you can build on this pretty easily.
A little bit tricky, though, I would say, for the Thor now, because obviously with the dual lane going the way he did early game, I don't think Zap's going to be as aggressive as he once was at the start. Yeah. And that means that his gank potentials really is an Osiris or a Hell. And the Hell's going to be maybe beside by A, the Yemoja, and B, it's a Hell with sustained cleanses and beads. So it could be a bit of a trickier task here. I expect we might see a bit more of a farm up for the time being between the two. Hunters so far, though, both going for the Devourer's Gauntlets route, something a bit more standard. And talking about mid lane mages real quick, the Doom Orb is on the rise and has been for quite a while here, as we see more and more mages go towards it in the mid lane. Mobility, it seems, Gore, seems to be the order of the day.
I feel like Shinto probably would still be in that boat as well and joining in if it wasn't for the fact that there's a Hell on the other side, because Doom Orb, like you said, it's just been so good. It's going to give a lot of power as well to this Hell, and her scaling's going to benefit from it. The healing's going to benefit from it. I think everything Paul has, it's going to provide him a lot of safety as well as just the ability to maybe play looser. You had already mentioned how easy it is for him to not stress too badly about Panatom. He's going to handle that no problem, so he can go ahead and use this to his maximum potential.
Ooh, Argus dropped down there onto Cubo, but perfectly healthy, and that's what you can see from the cleanses coming through from Paul on that backside, really supporting him in there. Although I tell a lie, Cubo did actually beat through that to make sure he stayed alive in that scenario. But that's some of the threats. You also saw Zapman contesting a little bit with Panitom there in that jungle area around the Oracles and forcing Panitom back, wresting a bit of control there for PK for a moment or two, I would say. A Scary D now on this Osiris. Not seen too much Osiris as of late. Has been receiving buffs consistently, I would say, for a while. And is going to see some action here to feel about the pick for this one.
I actually really like him. A lot of slows that come through for CC, and that's just maybe on paper, but I really like the idea of the counter he brings into this, which is if you group up for a Terra heal, and he just Lord of the Afterlifes right into the center, hits, let's say, 3-4 of you, all of that healing gone, the only amount of sustain that Sanguine have gone, which tilts things much more in favor of the Knights.
Would you look at this, PK seeing opening, too many members of Sanguine on the right-hand side, they're going for the Gold Fury, and in comes Netroid to try and contest. The River's Rebuke is down, and Neomar will swipe the board away as the Gold Fury goes the way of PK, and that also cost him Netroid. Now there's some more pressure as they look to try and find more options in the jungle.
The thing that surprises me most about that is that Netroid had his ult. I don't know why you run up to that, or at least don't try to pop it. If you're going for the steal, you I guess maybe full commit to it. Otherwise, he hasn't been using it a whole ton anyway, so I don't know if there's a reason to try and hold on to it there. Either way, I don't think he's walking out alive. It's just the difference of trying to make that go his way and his team's way. Because we had mentioned it was, what, 400 gold a few minutes ago? Now, looking about 3,000, just a little under. That's dangerous territory.
Cheeky PK. They're going to do the old classic rank strat of the Hunter comes back to lane. He ain't got no beats, but he does have his Aegis and ult. And will Netroid realize he's going to get capped here? He looks around the corner. Genius play. Gets to the sky in time to avoid most of the damage. Returns it back, and he will survive. So not a bad trade, considering he had no beats there. And it didn't cost him an Aegis, with PK playing nasty, little, dirty, tricksy traps.
And you know what? I gotta give him credit. He held on to his ult around the Gold Fury, and it pays off there. He doesn't die because he has that escape. So at the end of the day, net positive for Netroid. Maybe not for the team, but at least it's keeping him going. The only problem I have now is looking at where Sanguine can fight back into this. Normally you see a Gold Fury answered with something. They haven't really been able to clap back in terms of objectives. And I will also, I think, add the caveat. This isn't too far from what we've seen out of Sanguine and a lot of their quote-unquote standard games throughout the year, right? When they're not going up against some of these impossible matches, where they just hang out for a little while and farm.
Good work here from Scary D to pressure forward as he keeps 3 members of Sanguine busy. This has opened up the map on the left-hand side now for PK to try and find a couple of wins. They get the Oracles, they get that purple buff on the left-hand side too now. As they start to position around for the red buff, couple of wards down to see Vision. Sanguine should know this is going on, and they do have a Thor available if they need it to take to the sky for Vision. Scary D front line, and Rivers Rebuke down again, but wrong you slips the net there for now. Into the sky goes Panitom. Catches 3 in the ult, but where's the damage? They need it soon. Argus into play, but it's not enough to force or find a kill onto PK at all. Scary D still man-moding on the front line here. Just look at how tanky and healthy PK are. And now poor old Netroid's under pressure again. The Heart Bomb will detonate in the sky for more damage, but they just need a couple more shots, and Paul secures his first kill of the game. PK are out for blood here. Maybe maybe they did hear that wrong you interview. But meanwhile, Sanguine Gore have found what you were looking for, a turnaround play. The Pyro will go down here.
At least answering back with something. And at this point, I think trading Netroid for Pyro might just be worthwhile. The pressure the Knights have had on this duo lane side has just been monumental. I mean, they get that Fury, they've been stealing buffs, they come in and they take kills off of Netroid. Now 2 deaths to the carry here for Sanguine, and that farm is paying off, specifically there in the support role more than anybody. It's not somewhere you maybe would think that this would make a huge difference, but he's about 2.5 levels up for Neil Ma. That's good healing that's coming from Yamoja. River's Rebuke is going to have a little bit more into it once he's able to get that. Now he's got his second relic online in a place where Rongyu still has to wait a few levels for that. That's going to open up so many advantages during these next few team fights that Sanguine, they have to figure out how they want to re-aggress into the Knights here, because at least for right now, the farm is falling dramatically out of their favor.
Completely agree. I mean, you can just start to see the level discrepancies creeping in a little bit more. And that tier 2 town, that left-hand side, just falling for Zapman there. That's Sanguine getting caught with the pants down for my liking. I mean, that's a lot of free gold given up, a lot of map pressure too. This left-hand side of the jungle now, for me, Gore, feels a lot more favorable for PK to go, hey, we want another red buff. Hey, we want another purple. Hey, we've got control of the Fury Pit more consistently. Sanguine have got their work cut out here now.
Yeah, make no issue. This is absolutely the Knights jungle now. You can even see Netroid can't walk in here. Shinto can't walk into the jungle to contest these buffs without being met with a big fight waiting for him from the Knights.
Red buff is being contested here, mainly by Neil Ma, but support is on the way. Wrapping around the back is Cubo. He's looking for the pressure onto Paddington, and the damage again is just too much for him to handle. Even though Argus has dropped the health bars and PK are healthy enough, Cubo wanted more with that ultimate, but couldn't find enough. Into the fray goes Scary D, slashing away and making sure he pushes back Sanguine some more. But this is between a tier 1 and tier 2 tower. What's the reason for that, boys? It's more than anything, PK are feeling themselves right now, and I can understand why, as with the minion wave into mid, they look for this tier 1 tower. Neil leading the charge again, no ultimate available for him as he's rooted out, but it's allowing Scary D to create some distance too. Tier 1 falls, and PK extend their lead at the same time as the Fury is coming back up.
And the only thing that's going to slow PK down at this point is mana bars. Look at the health. I mean, look at the sustain. It goes back to what we were talking about earlier. They've gotten to the point where they're not really worried about a team fight, even if it doesn't go exactly the way they want, which I think you could say about that last one. As long as they walk out alive, they're going to be able to not only top off all of their health bars, but then rotate over. Paul may be out of the fight because his mana bar is so low, but he's the only one. Everybody else is able to get back in here. Neil is soon enough going to have that River's Rebuke back up. Those walls were perfectly placed last time, and now they're in this position to just keep the steam rolling. They get that tier 2 and left, as you had highlighted, the tier 1 in mid, and now an Oni Fury to give them this next set of waves for even more pressure across these lanes they've been dominated. Left lane, or left jungle I should say, is completely forfeit for Sanguine almost at this point, and it's starting to feel that way about right jungle. Once that tier 1 in right falls down completely, Sanguine are going to have to be very careful for every engagement that they pick up.
This is one of the reasons you can see Sanguine trying to even out this lane a little bit here. Much more pressure on this left-hand side all of a sudden. With Pyro being down, very tricky for PK to extrapolate this lead more. So instead, they'll focus some attention here, Sanguine, to the left, and try and just, even things up, make it less safe for Zap to keep on pushing down that lane if he wants to go there now too. I think the biggest thing here, Gore, is if you are a Sanguine fan, we haven't seen a team fight yet, I feel like. Not a straight 5-on-5 anyway. I feel like Sanguine have kind of been staggered in these engagements, and their strength really comes in the straight-up 5-on-5 fight.
And what is it Mifflin says? 5k down, that's a Sanguine lead when you start going into the 20-25 minute mark. So we're still very much in the realm of possibility for Sanguine to pull things right back in their favor, even with the damage Cuvo Fred is putting out right now, which seems a little ridiculous, but he's only 1-0-2, maybe second on the charts, but they haven't done a whole ton with it.
This is good confidence here, I feel, from PK to go for the FG. They spot 2 in that left-hand side, and only 2 members of Sanguine really around. Paddington and Jakor around to try and contest, but the River's Rebuke is going to isolate him again. And every time I say River's Rebuke, it's because Neil is having a great game secretly here. Don't keep from Paddington, though, but look at the damage on Cubo. It's not enough, and now with Shinto using Argus as well, he's trapped in an awkward spot, pinned it in by the Riptide 2. Paul now giving chase for Paddington. Rongyu and Netroid on the way to support, but the damage has been done. PK have an FG pre-20 minutes, and there's not even many towers left to take.
Man, and Sanguine were trying to do what I would call a staple in their play. When they know they're behind, they know they can't fight an FG, they look to push that left-hand lane. That's something that we've seen Netriot over there more often when his team is fighting in that pit, but because they don't get that tier 2, they don't pull anything back in their favor. Now the gold lead, especially with that right-hand tier 2 going down, is so in favor of the Knights, and they're going to keep on rolling into the Phoenix.
Not gonna lie, Go, I think I might need to order my Uber Eats now because I thought I was gonna have to wait a couple more hours maybe with this set, but at the moment, it looks like PK are trying to battle into this. Remember what I'm saying, they generally only go 2-0-2, and at the moment they're on the right-hand Phoenix at 20 minutes in. Nice wall and double tap out of Paddington though, but it doesn't come to much. Again, the sustain, even through the anti-heal, is just too much here for Sanguine to handle. All 5 members now, this could be a fight for them. Rongu pumps the ultimate, zones them away from getting onto the Phoenix here for the most part. Do Sanguine, the ult out from Jakor to push them back again. But the health bars of Sanguine are slowly dwindling. Same cannot be said for PK with the FG and the sustain they have. Zapman's on the Phoenix again. The route out from Rongu is gonna watch his health bar. It's too little too late as the pop goes from that heart bomb. But in comes Paddington! Big old dunk trying to turn it around. Scary D sniped out by Netroid 2, and PK have to turn away. I don't think it's that bad though if you're a PK fan there. You get an FG and you've got a Phoenix at 20 minutes, Go. Not too shabby.
It's insane. You get so many positives, like you said, as the Knights. You get all of these towers gone. You get the Phoenix. You're going to get the Pyro. You still have Fire Giant, even though it's going to wear off in about a minute and a half. That's going to give you just a little window of opportunity, maybe to use that. More than likely against a Primal Fury, maybe you have a window of opportunity to try and aggress into another Phoenix. But with the respawn timers, it doesn't feel like the stars will quite align for them there. But to get a 4-man dunk on Sanguine, to have that big of a turnaround, it just showcases that even though you have this massive, almost 10k lead, even though you've taken all of their towers, you've won every fight that you've taken against them, you cannot count yourselves too far ahead of Sanguine when they decide to group up as 5. And that's just such a scary prospect, to know that you have this massive, almost insurmountable lead, and that it still really could just be gone in the blink of an eye. If you do not aggress and play carefully, I think, here for the Knights in the next, let's say, 7 minutes, Sanguine could really pull this one back just in time to find a win in, let's say, 30-32.
I completely agree. I think you saw a little bit of hope in Sanguine then. And when you think about how this game's going too, PK are reaching optimized builds here. They're reaching the end of their builds and their levels, so the cap is almost there. And Sanguine get a chance to swing back into it. Paddington going up in the sky here, though, looking for a dunk opportunity. PK did reset the Fury, and Neomar steps up. Scary D, though, was walking around the corner, and he does get away from the Lord of the Afterlife. Rongu's there, too, but at the same time, Jakor was doing the same thing. And Scary D will live Jakor a different story, and now it's a 4v5. And PK don't look like they care about the Fury. They're looking for a couple more kills here towards the mid lane, or even a Phoenix. Heart Bomb rains down, or should I say feels a love on Rongu, who's now alone. That's 2 tanks potentially dead here, as Rongu now falls to Cubopen's 4th kill. The middle Phoenix is now exposed. They don't have minions though, but do they even care?
Well, they do over here and left, and while the Fire Giant buff is gone, with both tanks away, there's no utility for Sanguine to try and defend this. It's at least a Phoenix. It might take a little longer than they want, though. There's a good chance for Sanguine to maybe try and fight back. I like that the Knights do decide to fall back, though. There's only so much you can do when you don't have the Fire Giant buff, and with 10 seconds left on those tank respawns, you do play it safe, do wait, what, another 30 seconds, get yourselves a Fire Giant that's going to come up, as well as this Primal Fury that you had to drop a little bit ago. But now you're starting to see, I think, what's so scary. Not only the sustain they've had, I haven't seen these health bars get low enough that I've been truly scared for the Knights pretty much in 23, 24 minutes now that we've been in game. And you add the Fire Giant sustain onto that, and it just becomes almost disgusting how difficult it is to kill them.
Yeah, not gonna lie, I was really interested to see if Sanguine could come back into this because I felt they had a moment. But that last fight there, Gore, it really just tells me that PK are slowly but surely running away with this one, and Sanguine's gonna find it harder and harder to get back into it now.
Yeah.
Just not on the same page, and we saw Sanguine yesterday struggle too, funny enough. It's not a good time, I would say, in the Sanguine camp with how things are going here, especially with how they've had PK's number for quite a while. And PK are looking to break their loss streak against the top 4 and maybe just drag Sanguine the depths of the, well, let's just say it, bottom 6, I would say, with how this league's going on now. FG just respawn. It's not an enhanced one just yet. Neil happy to march on towards the front line though with Sanguine, and he isolates one, and that's going to be towards Jakor, but Jakor doesn't get his ultimate off. Into the sky goes Panitum, and Zapman's low. It's a big kill for Sanguine there. Some of the damage taken away. The fight is a bit split on PK, pulls out of it, and now Scaredy left a 1v1 Netroid, but Cuvo, Fred, who still isn't dead, is going to continue to take the lives and the heads of Sanguine one by one. They let it through, but maybe he falls here unless he gets some sustain. Where's Paul when you need him is what he's thinking. It don't matter though, he'll juke his way out of it. It's now Paul marches onto the front, focused towards Shinto at the back. Meanwhile, left-hand side, full fire minion wave on that Titan. Won't be enough to bring it down, but Pittsburgh Knights are really just trying to push in for this right-hand Phoenix.
And it's a 3v5. One of you for Sanguine's already at half health, and Shinto, they can't get aggressive. This Phoenix should at least be gone. Knights, I don't know if they want to push the advantage. Half health on the Titan.
Risky.
The greed in me wants to go for that Titan, but I think the smart call is exactly what they're doing. Fall back. You've got such a wide advantage because of these fire minions that this fire giant should be easy confirm for you. And now you're just playing the waiting game. Maybe not even the waiting game.
Yeah.
You might be able to grab this fire giant, go back, win another team fight, and close out the game. Panatom and Yarkor are back up, so this is where things will get a little murky in the waters for them. And the Knights have still just one more fight standing between them and that Titan.
I think the only thing for me that stopped them trying to end the game there for PK was probably Neilmar's Omni being quite low. I think if he had most of his Omni up there or his Rivers Rebuke to regen it a little bit, I think we could have seen a different story there and PK looked for the end. But better safe than sorry in my opinion with this one. 10-5 now is the lead. The gold lead has stretched to 14,000 and we're only 26 minutes in the game, remember. PK's looking really good here. This comp has been crafted well together, and they've played to their strengths and not their weaknesses. They've not really grouped up much, and when they have, they've been ready for action.
And again, they've just done things so well in a lot of these fights where, hey, we lose maybe some of our health bar. Maybe there was a good engage, like that last one started great for Sanguine, but they separate Sanguine. Sanguine do so well in 5v5s, but you tell them to split 2 and 3, and things just seem to fall apart. They couldn't lock down Paul, the fully stacked Warrior's Blessing, the movement speed, the Doom Orb, as well as the Breastplate. All of these coming into play to help keep him alive there. And so all of this really making it difficult to dive in on the mid laner, get rid of him. Sure, you can kill Zap as much as you want. He's 1-3 and 6. That doesn't matter if Cuvo goes 6-0 and 3. Paul is undying as well. If you're not able to shut down what have been the carries, it's not going to look great. And that looked like a good ambush, but it's not going to work.
Yeah, they tried for it. They will root Scaredy, but that Tether's going to reduce the amount of damage done by all those Sanguine members. And now it's Jakor that's left alone. And Cuvo Thread. I've not even had to cast one of the Tsukiyomi's abilities yet. It's just Shuriken Gusari Caltrop dead every single time. Now with a big old Argasult though coming through. Cuvo don't care. He goes straight to the back line, picks up more kills. Go, let's go to a break because this one's already done. Sanguine disposed of real quick and real clean.
Definitely doesn't seem to be their week as of right now. Started out yesterday looking like a good note. And a United clap back. We've said it several times so far, but I think it's worth mentioning. Every set the Knights have been in is a 2-0 in some fashion. And now that they're up 1, that's feeling good for them. I just think there's so much sustain, it's so difficult to deal with. Good damage on the side of the Knights as well. Once the farm started getting out of hand there for Sanguine, it didn't seem like they wanted to clap back. And, you know, they mentioned it in picks and bans, but Tsukiyomi did insane numbers throughout that game for the Knights. And they decided to dodge the opportunity to pick it up. Maybe they change that as they go into game 2, but there's a lot of things to change going into game 2 alongside it.
If you're going to say it's worth, if it's dangerous and it's OP, at least ban it. You had multiple opportunities there. Let's see what Sanguine do in game 2 though. We'll be back to break down game 1 and look at game 2 after this break.
Welcome back to the SPL. In this battle of the 4th and 5th seeds, so far PK is way out in front. This game one was kind of a stomp as their heel-heavy comp ran over Sanguine before they had any time to group together and do their normal team fight strategy. Now, I'm joined here on the desk by proud Slytherin Mifflin. And Miff, what did you think about this game that we just got to take a look at, bud?
I don't like Harry Potter. That game was really good. It seemed like the picks that were highly prioritized, the ones that we thought were going to be highly prioritized at least, were the ones that popped off. Yamoja controls the pace of the lane, and then Cubo walks in as Tsukiyomi and puts anyone who was unfortunate enough to cross paths with them into the dirt. Yeah, I mean, just like this, Neoma and Cubo kind of bulltroning together to win the match. It seemed like Sanguine didn't really have a grasp on how they wanted to play around these team fights. PK was allowed very often to start off a skirmish, get a little bit of poke, back up, heal, rinse, repeat, whereas Sanguine wasn't really all-inning too much.
Yeah, it's so odd, though, isn't it? I mean, everyone in the whole league bans Yamoja. They themselves think Tsukiyomi is busted by their own words, right? I mean, I don't know if it's quite to that level, but they think he's strong. And yet, they've allowed those picks to come in and stomp them. That's exactly how it happened, right? I mean, Paul had a great game on the Hell, too. I don't want to take away from that, and that is a bit of a Paul signature play here, but I don't think anything that caught Sanguine off guard happened here in this game. The execution just was not there for them this time around, and we've got a lot of respect for this Sanguine squad, so I expect them to be able to bounce back in that next game, but PK kind of brought it to them here in this very first game.
Yeah, I think it's going to take some adjustments in the band, some adjustments in the pick for Sanguine. I think if you are going to go ahead and go out on the interview and say that you value Tsukiyomi incredibly highly, and then give it to the enemy team and have it perform an 8-0-6, I think that's about as much testing as you need. Yeah, that God's pretty good. If you're not going to pick it for yourself, go ahead and dedicate a band that way. I think that Sanguine really kind of just gave Knights everything that they wanted. Scary D gets to play a pretty standard frontliner. Neilmog gets to play the best god in the game. Cubo Fred gets the new god on town inside of that Tsukiyomi. It just seems like across the board, Sanguine got outdrafted.
I think that they did. I mean, remember the Terror that they take as their third pick right before you go into the second ban phase? I don't think that pick showed much of its value. I think it really helped with First Blood that they were able to get over in the duo lane, but aside from that, not really much value came from it. So yeah, I think there's some curious picks here. And again, I don't know if I necessarily want to say these drafts were a mistake from Sanguine. I think a lot of times they execute these same drafts better, but maybe you got to make sure you don't give up such power picks like Yamoja alongside that, right? Those are the kind of picks that make it really difficult to execute even at the best of times, and Sanguine weren't showing us exactly that here in this first game.
Yeah, I would really prefer to see them just go back to more of their standard picks. Get Rongyu on something like the Horus. Make sure that Netruoid's comfortable on his pick as well. Make sure that you don't allow Paul to play the Hell. With that triple healer comp coming through, one Ankh was really the only thing standing between Sanguine and straight up losing a team fight. And we would see that immediately they would go in, pop it, try and win out on the engagement, take a little bit too much poke, and then immediately disengage. Against a triple healer draft like that, you have to win the first fight. You can't allow them to reset at all. It seems like Sanguine kind of just allowed PK not only to play their own draft, but also play the game at their own pace.
We'll have our chance to take a look at the adjustments Sanguine want to make. Let's get into the picks and bans for game number 2. The crazy thing was, in game 1, at least for the beginning of the game, and up until the Phoenix Siege portion, PK were winning the first fights. The sustain wasn't even all that critical for them. They were sustaining on their way to Gold Fury, I suppose, but they weren't worried so much about the fights on the Phoenix Sieges, though it came in huge for them. So yeah, Sanguine kind of let PK have everything they wanted, it felt like, at least in the end result. So now they have a chance to try and make some of those adjustments. They'll be in the first pick spot here this time, banning away the Persephone. I wonder if we will see that Yamoja come through for them, or maybe PK will ban it now that they're second pick.
Yeah, I think now that PK is in second pick, they've already seen the strength of the Tsukiyomi. They're surely not going to allow that Yamoja through. I mean, Sanguine has shown that they're capable of playing that god at an incredibly high level. It seems like almost there's been a paradigm shift between these two teams, whereas PK is kind of playing those top-tier picks, the top of the cream of the crop, and Sanguine kind of go back to their own flavor picks themselves, whereas you'd expect the complete opposite, considering how Sanguine conduct themselves in the interviews and such. I think that we really will see a huge shift in the bans here. Sanguine likely going to prioritize the Tsukiyomi pretty high up in their draft, and I'm sure that Terra falls by the wayside.
Well, PK will not be the ones that have to suffer at the hands of the Yamoja this time. They banned that one away alongside the Kuzenbo. So still taking a bit of an eye towards Rongyu's God pool with those two picks together. Meanwhile, Sanguine doing some fairly standard mid lane bans that have the added benefit of being directed towards Paul. Now, there's still a lot of high-value picks that will be left. They take care of the Hell as well, but that means Amaterasu is still out there. The Rom and Cupid both are out there, not getting any kind of bans. The Tsukuyomi is still out there as well. Morgan still out there. A lot of really good stuff to grab as PK ban away the Olarun. Even Freya, which Netroid will sometimes come around and grab alongside the Jingwei. A lot of good stuff for these two teams to kind of bounce back and forth.
Toss a Cthulhu into the mix as well. I mean, just about everything's still available because of these targeted bans. The Habwa and the Hell coming through. The Kuzumbo, not exactly we expect first base bans, but it's going to be the Rom up first overall, which is interesting. Sanguine could have decided to go towards the Amaterasu and Cupid over. PK is not a team that will often go for the double hunter draft, but now they're allowed to take whatever they want. Now Sanguine's going to be put in the position likely where they can maybe take the Cupid for themselves if they want to force PK into going down to that next tier. Again, is not a team that likes to run the double hunter.
Yeah, very likely they'll end up with a different mid lane mage this time. PK shore up their front line with the Amaterasu Sobek pick, and Sobek has risen the ranks here lately. I'm doing a disservice by not listing him alongside those other top value picks. Meta supports look so much better when they play Sobek, and I feel like this kind of happens with this god where he kind of ebb and flows out of the meta, but turns out that Charge, Prey, and Lurking in the Waters are just good, man. Sobek's a strong god, a great setup pick as well. But hold up, Sanguine now hovering on this thought. I believe PK banned this out in Game 1. Maybe Sanguine are about to show us why.
Yeah, this is a new look for Sanguine, almost completely different in the draft phase than last time we saw them.
I agree.
This Rom and Thoth together are going to be pretty strong, having double snipes from a long range. The poke potential all going to be there, and if you're worried about PK just running it down on you with this Amaterasu, Thoth has a very strong reposition tool in that second ability. Match it up with a Nemesis, now we're starting to see a little bit more of that signature Sanguine. She's at the top of the tier list, might as well lock it in.
Makes a ton. Give this over to Painatom, who I think did have some good dunks, but they were so far behind by that point that it was difficult for him to follow up with the appropriate damage, for his teammates to be in range too. Maybe this Nemesis will let him get off to a slightly better start, but they are allowing exactly this to happen to give this Tsukuyomi back over to the pit. Now they have the Amaterasu, the Sobek, one of the best supports you can get in a world where Yamoja's banned, and now the Tsukuyomi, a very strong top 3 for PK. Sanguine are going to have to prove that this more long-range Thoth Rom going to be able to make up the difference.
And once this game gets into that late game team fight phase that Sanguine always is aiming for, around that 30-minute mark, you'll often see junglers try and 1v1 each other in the center of the map. Nemesis versus Tsukuyomi, I'm taking Tsukuyomi every day of the week. You have a disarm to stop the majority of Nemesis' damage coming through, a stun on the tail end to get rid of her shield, a ton of poke potential with a very low cooldown first ability, and if Nemesis tries to disengage, well, your ultimate's just going to chase her down. I think the Tsukuyomi pick fits incredibly well. Thoth, he's not escaping Tsukuyomi either. Neither is Rom. Even if he goes up into the air, after getting touched by Tsukuyomi's ultimate, the damage is still going to come through.
Going to be hard to avoid it. Now, going into the second ban phase, PK know that Sanguine need their front line. No support, no solo. Sanguine, no PK, need their back line. No mid, no hunter. So you can see those bans are happening accordingly. Take that Cupid out when you have Rom, and you've taken away the top 2 hunters. Take away the Morgan, and you further tried to limit Paul's god pool with some of his mid lane picks. But now PK get their chance to return a little bit of that Sanguine flavor the other way as they grab up the Freya, something Netroid normally likes to play.
Man, if you had told me that the team names were just flipped on the top, I would absolutely
Agreed.
believe you, because this PK
100%.
draft looks like something Sanguine would want. This Freya is going to fit in just fine. Thoth is going to have a very hard time channeling his ability easily in front of that wall. Banish is going to put him up there, set up for the follow-up, maybe a pluck on the tail end, or a silence from the Amaterasu to just set up for all the damage coming through afterward. But this Sanguine pick, the Cthulhu, is going to be nice. Just that constant source of CC, the knock-up god once he goes into the ultimate, making sure that Freya is going to have a much harder time using her stims, making sure that Tsukuyomi can't stick to your backline. And Wrong You going back to the Horus, I'll never complain.
Plus, we know how much Yarkor likes this Cthulhu as well. When he was first released, Yarkor was one of the ones that was saying, hey, give it to me every week. I'll happily play this god. So Sanguine do manage end up to return to something more like normalcy. This pick of Thoth for Shinto is clearly something that PK knew about, so I trust that it's something that's comfortable for him. They tried to ban it out. We know Cthulhu and Horus are picks that they like, but hold up. We got the set ADC perhaps coming through because they've already got the Tsukuyomi. One of those has got to be going to the maybe mid even, right? Because Freya, you think, want to go to the long lane.
We might be looking at a Sobek solo with a Suki or a Set and Amaterasu lane, or maybe Amaterasu with a Set. This is interesting, man. It's a very interesting pick. We know that Paul in the past has played Set in mid, so he could be looking to try and bully out this Thoth. That could be where he decides to go with it. This Freya is likely going to go into the long lane just so you can get that farm online, make sure you get those rings available to you. It's interesting. PK bringing a brand new look, and it's a ton of aggression.
Yeah, my brain needed a moment to catch up. I was so expecting a mage to come in that spot. But yeah, I think this is most likely going to be the Freya going over to Zap, and then this Set in mid with Tsukuyomi back in Cuvo Fred's hands, and then the Amaterasu Sobek could swap between, but likely think the Ama would be over there in solo. So a very interesting draft for PK, and I think one that, as you said, lends itself to aggression, right? They might not let Sanguine, again, get to their favorite stage of the game, which is that late-game team fight. This PK draft could run right over him right away.
It's just so much engage potential as well. Sobek and Amaterasu is that front line. They've almost completely eliminated having a backline in their draft. Set and Tsukuyomi are also going to be diving, and Freya, with Valkyrie's discretion, might be safe enough to be left alone in the backline, considering that Sanguine's dive isn't nearly as strong. It's just going to be Nemesis back there, maybe with the help of a Horus. PK's got a pretty strong draft here, but it's going to be very execution-centric. If they fall behind in the early game, they don't have very many comeback potentials.
And they're going to have to dive. I don't know if they can keep up with Sanguine's range that they've drafted as well. An interesting game number 2. So we'll let Hindu and Gore try to make some sense of it.
Yeah, there's some sense to be made. I mean, honestly, if you look at how the picks and bans went there, Gore, let's be honest. I mean, with what happened between the two here, what we really ended up seeing there was a lot of bans towards Paul in the mid lane. So he's like, okay, cool, you're going to ban all my mages? I'll pick an assassin.
It was a certain point where we were looking at it, and I just said, you said they didn't even want Paul to play at a certain point. There are 4 mage bans, plus the Cupid down there for them. So I guess one that could also still technically count as at Paul, even though it would probably be Zap that would play a Cupid in any circumstance. I think still, all of that going towards them, and he pulls out this Set. Now, this is something that, again, in the past we have seen him play. We've seen him win with it. I think we've seen him lose with it. So there's not really an end-all, be-all to this one coming through. But it is something that I remember interviewing them after the Set and asking, like, what was up with that? And I believe it was Zap just saying that they wanted practice playing anything and everything so that if it came up either on the world stage or later in the phase, they'd just be able to do it. So I feel like this Set, once again, is fitting into that territory of just, hey, we can do it, so let's see if it'll work.
Well, some contest there from Sanguine. Rongyu on one of his signatures, Horus here. I will say, you know, Sanguine's composition in game 2 is very comfortable for the most part. I could definitely look at all those gods they've drafted Gore and go, yeah, they feel like Sanguine gods that could come up trumps for them. However, double assassin through this middle area with a jungler in tow against the Tough. At least Tough's got some distance available to him to stay at range. I am a little bit concerned about the survivability of Tough, however, with this one coming through.
Yeah, there's going to be some pretty easy dives onto Shinto, and then factoring in the fact that it's Shinto maybe means that this mid lane comes out maybe neutral overall. Shinto definitely going to be feeling the danger, but this is actually where I think it truly opens up. 2 assassins makes invading the jungle pretty easy all of a sudden. Even if you don't both have Assassin's Blessing, you can lock them down.
Well, if you've also got Neilmark coming over from the duo lane too, just to give you that added bit of help there, 3v2's guaranteed. If you don't see a rotation out of the duo lane from Sanguine, PK, you know, jump into the bag, steal away the gold, and walk away again quite happy. And it definitely feels like they're playing with confidence, you know, with how game 1 went as well. We've seen when PK are feeling strong that they will experiment a lot. The desk, Mifflin, and Finch were really talking about that, about how we've seen quite a few varied picks out from PK through the regular season. And for me, this is just another one where they're getting to show their flexibility in different roles and pick potential in their sets.
and it gives them that opportunity, then I'm all for it every single time, right? Because it allows you, again, this flexibility where if you're on the world stage and it's the last game, you're down, let's say, by 2, and you really need to turn it around, this is the kind of pick that we typically see pulled out that absolutely does it. And so Set maybe coming in as a wild card, but still something I think that's going to be beneficial for them. But playing against Wrong You on the Horus, Yarkor on the Cthulhu, both of those have been signature picks for Sanguine. It's going to be difficult, I think, for the Knights even still.
Bit of pressure in the dual lane going on. The battle continues between the Horus and the Ram as the stun does connect with Zapman. Knock up as well, and Zap forced away. Nice little shots coming out from Netroid here, and a rolling 2 to try and close the gap. Great body blocks from Neil though, just to prevent it, and not enough arrows available for Netroid to penetrate on through. But the damage was pretty impactful there. Zap has to pop his last health potion. Neil also now on his last health potion too here in this laning phase. So at the moment, Sanguine may need some support. Speaking of that, just keep an eye on Cuvo rotating this direction.
And he's lurking, he's waiting, and honestly, I can't tell if he wants to confirm the purple buff or go in for a fight. Both Zap and Neil, even with those health pots popped, aren't necessarily the healthiest to maybe jump in here and actually engage. And that's something that's completely different from last game. They don't have the sustain. They don't have anything to keep them as alive over here. So it is going to take them, I think, a little bit longer to find that same amount of control that they did throughout game 1. But they do have good news, and that's that Cuvo had a really good game on the Tsukuyomi, and historically, Panatom has not had the best games on Nemesis, so you can expect to see one jungler start to stand above the other throughout this, at least based on history, and I think that's going to give the Knights the lead they need to start dominating other lanes, and even continue potentially invading the jungle and stripping things away from Sanguine.
Well, when you see Cuvo staying towards this left-hand side, towards the dual lane side, and now looking for a gank potential. You did see Nemesis get some work done on the right and strip away, but look at this in the dual lane. I don't even think Cuvo Fred's needed here. Zap and Neilmar combined to bring down Netroid, and there's not a whole lot Wrong You can really do there. Even though the gank was coming through from Cuvo, it wasn't really needed. First blood goes the way of Zap on this Freya, and we don't see too much Freya as of late. She's starting to slip a little bit, I would say. Obviously still gets banned now and again, but it's the competitive level that we really see her picked up in, and Zap showing that she's still definitely relevant.
And making sure that she's staying ahead as well. We got so used to talking about Freyas that were fighting from 3 levels behind that it almost became the standard, right? It's like, oh, well, Zapman's down 6 to 9 on the other side. Don't worry, though, he's got the Ring of Hecate, so he'll be perfectly fine. Now, at least with a small lead over what Netroid's been able to get up, once those rings come online, you can expect to see him maybe box a little bit more confidence out of them, and then it starts to become a different game when you see the rotations from the Freya. But it's always going to be, I think, built around, at least for this early game, how much time Neil's over there, how much time Cuvo's over there, the setup around this Freya. In the 1v1, I don't know that he's going to be able to lock down Netroid as consistently without potentially losing his life in the process.
Well, you saw the grouping from Sanguine there to try and steal away the blue from Scary D, but Scary D was having none of that against 4 members in the area. Managed to just thread the needle, get the damage on through with that reflection shield, and now gets his own blue buff back as well, so Sanguine don't find the small win there. Talk about the comps a little bit more here, Go. I mean, Sanguine, a lot of long-range poke, right? Stay at distance, keep that poke damage coming through. But Knights, meanwhile, good tanky front line. And the back line is very burst-heavy towards squishies. But can the tanks keep them alive long enough, I feel like, could be a state of affairs here in this one.
Yeah, that's the thing that it's going to be most interesting. Sanguine, for a lot of last game, unfortunately, their tanks were the ones that were slaughtered almost at the beginning of every single fight, right? So you didn't get to see a lot from Yarkor, you didn't get to see a lot from Wrong You, and Neilma had some of the best ults that you could expect out of Iamoja. Now Neilma doesn't have the same team fight impactful ult, Lurking in the Waters doesn't do as much.
Blinking mid lane comes through from Wrong You, forces Cuvo away, who also uses ultimate there to try and give himself some self-peel. However, look at what Paul did at the same time. He stepped up in that engagement in mid, just to make sure Shinto didn't feel comfortable trying to fully commit on the enemy jungler. And now in the jungle, you can see Scary D just bite off a little bit more than he can chew here. Should still be fine to get away for the most part, as he looks to try and get some camps. And that's opened up a bit of a window, I would say. Oh, that pluck, Neilmar! That was beautiful! The alley-oop from Zapman into a beautiful layup from Neilmar. The rope up real good there to find the second kill of the game. And now Zapman's up 2 kills at 7 minutes in.
That's about as close as a 1-2 punch I think you could get between two players functioning that well. I mean, that was just so well received from Neil as a support, well read from Zap to be able to get that. And unfortunate for Netroid as he falls further behind in terms of farm now. But the good news is, again, he's still wrong.
Jakor doesn't really realize he's on his own here, but he's getting a bit of backup from Shinto around the corner, however. But he's already bursted down before Shinto can really make an impact. He gets good damage off and it hits 3, but there's no further follow-up. Shinto, though, senses blood. He feels like he should be able to at least get a kill out of this, but in doing so, he might get isolated alone. Look at where Sobek is too, wrapping around the corner. But luckily enough, Tom is here to slow that down. Rongyu now rotating around to the right-hand side, and Rongyu getting poked down a little bit from some of that skewer damage coming on through from Paul too. And Neil just kind of marshalling the troops of Sanguine, keeping an eye on the vision, as now Jakor teleports back in, and it's Neil under a bit of pressure. He does lurk in the waters, however. Final judgment's down for Shinto, remember, so they might not have the damage to find the kill here. I tell a lie, it is of course Shinto, but luckily Neil's still alive and he will get away, as will Paddington.
And Zapman recognizes exactly what he can do with this, goes to immediately strip things away, but this is going to be a good rotation. That's the power of Horus. But Zap's low and the snipes are good.
Yeah, and that's going to force out Zapsol that just came back up, by the way, just in the nick of time to get that last little ult off, as I think Netroid was waiting for the juke boots to come out from Zap there. So good work there from Netroid, and honestly, Zap on the survival. Mid lane, though, pressure on Paul. Paul forced to use his beads and limp away after, once again, Rongyu finding a good stun towards that mid lane, which I'm quite surprised about, if I'm honest. The range of Horus isn't that great on that stun, so a bit surprised that Paul really got caught in that situation. Action-packed, though, I would say, for the first few minutes. It's talking about action again. Netroid under pressure has no beads and has no life. Wherever Cubo goes, bodies aimed up dropping down.
And they're just consistently setting this up. Even over here in solo lane, Scary D now in trouble. Cthulhu going into big form. And this is something, this Descent into Madness, such a good ultimate that we typically see in team fights. Not able to help against the Amaterasu. But that's the conversation I wanted to have a while ago, which was about how big Cthulhu should be.
Sure, well, we'll talk about the Cthulhu in a second, because that little pick on that left-hand side there onto Netroid, and with the jungler from Sanguine being on the right-hand side, there's a huge man advantage, and PK Go will take a Gold Fury there and extend our lead a little bit more so. But as you were saying, you know, this Cthulhu, what is it you expected out of him, Minko?
I mean, normally I guess the word I want to use is something I was using to describe Captain Twig earlier, which was a lightning rod, right? Someone that is going to take all of the damage for your team, all of the focus. And it feels like he might still be able to do that. But Yarkor, one of the players outside of Finoke who made him look good in solo lane consistently when he first came out, even with a couple of the nerfs he's received, I still think we'll see a lot out of that. It's Yarkor and Rongyu once again that maybe are going to help pilot this. They're the strengths in the team fight. And I think they have that back. But again, with the way Neil's been playing this so back, with the way that we've seen Scary D play on Amaterasu, I'm still a little nervous for him on the frontline pursuit, especially since the Knights this entire game have just been cultivating a lead.
Yeah, I mean, with how the game's going so far, I feel it's Cuvo, Fred, and Zap are the two to really watch on this PK roster right now. The opposition directly from Sanguine having a bit of a troublesome time getting themselves in the action. Netroid 0-3 at the moment with the pressure he's received. But this is just giving PK more confidence, I feel like, as now they invade the blue buff away from the Cthulhu. And with the Gold Fury down, they could turn their attention to this Pyromancer if they wish.
They have the damage for it, and they have the control for it. What are you going to do? Ult in? And it seems like Rongyu does actually think exactly that, but he's alone now.
Great work. But he does knock away from the Pyromancer. Can he swoop back to his team? He does. Into the fray comes Panitab to take out Cuvo Fred for his first death in this series so far. And now it's Sanguine that catch PK. I thought PK were in a good spot to do that, but they just didn't realize Rongyu's ultimate came out huge there.
And it's part of the reason Rongyu has been so good on this Horus. He's got Prot Shred, he's got healing, but at the end of the day, one of the best things he has is the ability to either move him or his team all around. And I think that could have been something, maybe even more for them if they get in there as a group. I was kind of surprised to see him drop on his own, but hey, they still walk away with a kill, and finally pulling something back opens up that conversation for them to start showcasing why, yeah, you've got 3 kills on Netroid, that's great, but why that doesn't matter. Why the rest of the team for Sanguine are going to be just as important, if not more important now, that they're able to get in there and at least take some of these skirmishes.
Well, you saw the freeze from Zapman there on the left-hand side, looking for more pressure on Netroid, who's 3 levels down, remember. But I love what I see out of Netroid, freezing the wave at his tower edge, trying to stay safe, trying to follow him up, and trying to overextend the PK Knights, or the Pittsburgh Knights, I should say. Bad news is, there's just not enough damage, and Zap and Neil will limp away unscathed, really, as now Netroid ends up sharing most of that farm with his jungler and support, and continues to be behind around 2 levels. But PK, meanwhile, on this right-hand side, grouped up as 3 now. Paulie's really hunting at the moment, I would say, on this set mid lane. And now this Pyro this time round should go down before even Cthulhu can realize there's danger. And actually, Jakor needs to be able to watch himself a little bit because Paul's turning his attention there too. He goes into 3. Rongu on the Brave, bringing in the boys in with him in terms of Panitom. But Panitom got knocked up at the same time and couldn't do much about it. Jakor still frontlining and whittling down Kubo's health bar. Not much mobility on Tsukiyomi. Unless he's going to go back to the base, but he'll still get a kill with Caltrops, I feel, there at the tail end to make it a 1-for-1 exchange. 2 for 2, I should say. Final Judgment didn't do enough to Paul into the sky there with the snipes goes Netroid. And now he's back on the board. But watch where Zap is. He's flanking around this right-hand side. And there's 2 members of Sanguine. Overextended, Panitom at half health, will dash back. But they might be able to catch Shinto. He does have beads up, however. So the banish off the mark. And Shinto slips the noose.
Zap has Hastened Ring, though, and he's going to go up into the ult. They think they can burst it, and they do, for Shinto at least. So they open up that conversation, and there's still Panitom in the jungle. They might not know where he is, Hindu, but I mean, outside of all of that, I think Sanguine get a lot of good kills they finally needed, but the Knights absolutely answer back, and not only in ways that are helpful for them, but honestly, they're able to pick up even more farm afterward, and Zap's still hungry.
Well, it looks like Paddington was a bit cheeky going for his own speed here, but now he's going to juke it around, wait for support coming. But Zap ain't going to buy enough time. A couple of shots is all it takes with a Freya. No ultimate available for this Freya, though, or beads now. And without that secondary relic online, it shows how long Zap's been in lane without going back to base there. But at the same time, Paddington does die, and he does escape again to farm towards the middle lane. Primal Fury's up relatively soon too for PK. You can see the gold leads around 4,000. Funny enough, that whole couple of minute segment we just saw was all around that Pyromancer. And I was definitely interested to see how the graphs really took that Pyromancer in stride. And it looked more than anything, PK still came out the better in terms of form, in terms of experience, more than gold.
And you can see, though, that it's still difficult to take down a Cthulhu. Like, I think they still come out on top. You still have good fights if you're the Knights. But you could see that Yarkor isn't as easy as just 3v1 Knights burn him down like it's nothing. He turned a lot of damage around in that fight. And luckily, Zapman is in a position where he has Hastened Ring, and he got it before he got that Ring of Hecate. But now, with the 3 kills under his belt, with that Ring of Hecate, you're going to see the power dynamic start to shift. The Knights not only getting the Furies in this game, but now also getting these items online for Zap. He's already got a 2-level lead, already got a lot of kills under his belt as well. He's going to be in these fights a lot more often, and it's a little scary to think about.
Oh, it definitely is. I mean, that's the power of Freya in these team fights, especially when you look at the squad they've got. There is too many threats on PK, I feel like. Set, Tsukiyomi, and Freya. Which one do you focus first? Because whichever one you go on, the other 2 are going to go unchecked. And the way Cubo's been playing this so far has definitely caused some issues for Sanguine. Now, though, what happens next from PK's point of view? Gold Fury's down, granted. There's still a couple of tier 1 towers up in this mid and left-hand side. And you can see with PK looming towards this left, that's what they want to try and go for here. Zap's clear ain't the greatest, at least in terms of towers, and he's forced to ult away from danger there. But that sets up Cubo Fred to sneak in and take out Panitom. Final Judgment doesn't really do much to pull there yet again. And Sanguine are having a bad week at the office, I would say, so far. PK, though, looks like they're taking him to the cleaners here, as now Cubo Fred gets aggressive again with the ultimate. Jakor's slowly back marching here, realizing he can't take on this front line that's coming through from PK, as another 4 for 2 exchange happens on PK's side.
And honestly, Scary D, I think, ended up doing more damage to himself by standing under the tier 2 tower that long than really what you got to see out of Sanguine. But I like this response. I was talking about the fact that Yarkor didn't seem to be too threatened by the damage that was being output by the Knights in the last fight. So what do they do this time around? They just don't kill him. Ignore the Cthulhu and kill everybody else around him. Still technically win that fight, but then Neil ends up giving the kill credit over towards Yarkor. Zapman might have stayed over
now
too
he's
long
dead
as well.
Might have stayed, Gore. Might have stayed.
he
What are you
did.
talking about?
He did.
He missed the
bigged it.
bus by about 3 years, dude. I mean, we're in America too. That's how often they come, you know? Like, I don't know. That's definitely Zap on his rank grind there more than anything else of like, well, I'm killing everyone, so why do I need to base? But no mana. And that actually, he uses beads there, which is even more surprising to me. That was such a waste of beads in my eyes. He might as well have just died and given up the goose. And honestly, funny enough, that does help out Panitom a little bit here, Gore, because that, you know, shut down a little bit on Zap. He was undying in this game so far. That extra gold that Panitom can get, he kind of needs it right about now.
Yeah, helps him catch up to Cuvo. Maybe not in terms of items just yet, but at least levels 15 to 15. You're not trailing too far behind in the jungle. And that is very much a, what is it in his chat? Exclamation point, one more wave. It's been that way for 6, 7, 8 years for Zap, so
Yeah, I think-
not too surprising
I
to
think
see him
it's
continue going for the farm.
Yeah, this one feels more like Zap saying it's not one more wave, it's hashtag one more kill is kind of how I'm seeing it, but that time round didn't work out. Pyromancer started up by Scary for a second, bit disrespectful to do that in front of Cthulhu and of course Panitum, who are right alongside him. Paul meanwhile just getting a bit of farm on that left hand side. But Scary could technically just solo that down on his own if they give him the break, but wrong you did get Trixied there into using the ultimate. Looks like Scary D might have spotted that out in the sky. So an ultimate down, not a huge one I would say on the side of Horus, but definitely something that can be influential when you're slightly out of position. Talking about out of position, PKR right now with Sanguine have just kind of watched and waited for Scary D. Start up and clear this Pyromancer, or do they? They back up at the tail end. Scary D hits a 2-3-man ult, but straight away Panitum commits onto Zapman knowing the beads are down. Zap forces back, no extra pressure there coming through. Remember, this is a 4-on-5 now because Netroid's not even in the fight just yet. And now Netroid coming back into the fray. PK are trying to and will do so, strip the Pyro away. Blinking from Neil, gets the block on Wrongyu, and Wrongyu has to dash back to his team, but Scary D's having none of that as he dashes in and takes the life. Now the dash from Panitum to get away. Beachu's 2. Cthulhu's just wading away on the backline, or should I say the frontline backline combination, trying to bring him on down, but it's not enough yet again. Now the backup is here from Sanguine, but they can't hit their shots in time. PK back away, they get a Pyro, and they get a pick.
And what they managed to eke out of that, even on top of the Pyro, the pick, it's they keep some ults, so they have a small advantage for a skirmish, say, around an Oni Fury in 30 seconds, which is probably going to be important. Sanguine don't like letting those Furies fall down. It's their favorite one to contest, and I think every team's favorite one to pick up. You know, early game Gold Fury can swing things heavily in your favor, but an Oni Fury at any point is just going to be a massive power swing. And with Yarkor not having his ult, Wrongyu maybe the first one to get it back outside of maybe Shinto and Panatom with some cooldown, it has been very solid for them to potentially run in and just scoop this up, no problem. Sanguine aren't even in position for it. I think that means they're going to have to
They
give
should go
this
for
one
fire.
up.
They should go for fire
It's
now.
even more
Honestly,
pressure.
like, you need to go for fire here. If I'm Sanguine, they know they can't do the Oni. And look at that, PK, no! The wards are down, and PK immediately go, nope, we cannot do this Fury, because if we do, then Sanguine is stripping away the fire. Both teams really, like, that's just a battle of wills and minds more than anything else. So impressed by both there as Jakor tries to leap on in towards Paul and Cuvo Fred, but didn't enjoy what he found there. Neilmar, though, lurking towards the front once again, looking towards Shinto for a second. PK staying grouped, and that's a big shot onto Zap, man, who loses half his health. But Zap holding on with bravery with that ultimate, and ends up dying because of it. Go to the sky, Zap, you lunatic! Jakor has to fall back to his team, though, and Sanguine are in a pretty strong position here. Look at the health bar of Neil and of Scary D. They're just a little bit too low to really contest, but Sanguine are hunting for kills, not the FG here. Knock up and Scary D of all people. The damage isn't there to bring him down, though. Sanguine are just hunting for scraps, I feel like, here. They'll get a tier 1 in mid. But where do they go next? It's going to be that Fury.
The scariest thing, I think, in this game is Shinto piloting Thoth and having a final judgment ready. It has hit so many times, and it has done so much damage across all members of the Knights here, and being the main reason Zapman goes down. I thought that was going to end up reading into a Fire Giant, but now maybe the Knights, looking at what Sanguine just did, if they want to get it really aggressive here, they might be able to try and get a Fire Giant.
Yeah,
I don't know
rush
about
it is
this.
the question. Well, I mean, a couple of members from Sanguine were looking to back, and they're going to be late on the way over here now. Can they get here in time and stop it? Jakor doesn't have an ultimate. Swoop on in, son. No, it won't happen. PK get the FG, and immediately Sanguine have to turn tail. So Oni versus an FG, I mean, the FG comes out trumps every time because you're going to push out those lanes, Gore. You're not really going to see pressure unless we look at Sanguine trying to group with an Oni wave and counter the pressure that PK put on the map now.
And you get the added benefit. Zapman had respawned, even though he wasn't really part of the fight. He gets the Fire Giant buff either way, so you really get to come out of this as happy as you want for the Knights. Yeah, it might take a little bit of time to get rid of those Oni waves, but you've already done one in right. Mid is about to go down, and maybe some pressure on left is needed for Sanguine since Scary D has pushed up right lane as much as he can. But this is all net benefit for the Knights as of right now. You know, this 4,000 gold lead swinging heavily in their favor. Zapman, even though it was maybe an unwanted back, did get to spend that gold now and is coming back with a Telkine's ring on top of everything. And so he's going to be hitting even harder. Beads are back up in 30 seconds, and it doesn't feel like a fight's going to pop off before that. So his safety is all going to be available for him. And now it's just the Knights ready and raring to go to find one of these tier 2s. The question is which one. And honestly,
always
right,
the duo, right?
always the best one, right?
Definitely. And it's funny enough, you see the best and worst is Zap at times there, because one minute he's not using his ultimate for safety, but then the next minute, on that wave coming up to that tier 1, he was patient for his team in case Sanguine was setting a trap for him, which I find really interesting to look at. But Sanguine do not want to surrender this tier 2 tower. They're going to stand strong here for a moment. Cuvo Fred, however, is split pushing in the mid lane, so PK won't be too upset. If they can get one of the 2 towers, they're still coming up with a victory here. Sanguine can't overextend though, or can they? They're going for a play in mid, but they get spotted. Double banish from Zap. It's only Paliton that slips out. Paliton forced to double dash away. The carries of Shinto and Netro couldn't even get there, and now they're collapsed on. Shinto forced to dash away. The snipe's potential from the sky available from Metroid, but it don't matter. The backline is in tatters from Sanguine. They try to make a play, and they get punished heavily for it. Only Jakor stands between PK, a potential Phoenix, or even the game at this point. PK are looking great to close this one out now. 40-second respawns. I don't know if they can end. It's 2 Phoenixes though. Tower's still up. I think they've got the damage, especially with 2 assassins.
And it's one of those calls, it feels like it should be close, but they're shredding this Phoenix. They're going to be able to walk this one in. It's a case, I want to say, maybe question why they didn't want to pick it up, but they let it through 2 games in a row, and it wins 2 games in a row. Once again, the Knights keeping that 2-0, everything in their favor. He finds really good picks the minute the front line decided to land too far back. You called it. When Zapman gets that banish, it was on the targets. 2 assassins just get to go in, pick of the litter in terms of carries. You're a kid in a candy store at that point, and I think Paul, as well as Cuvo, just got to run through anybody that they wanted to.
Apologies again for the end of the game there. Obviously, we came out to us, but PK did close it out. Obviously, nobody respawned there at the tail end. But PK, honestly, they find their first 2-0 victory, a positive one against a top 4 team. Or is Sanguine a top 4 team now is the real question, because they're starting to slip down. They're lulling one back if they want to try and end the season the way they started it. We'll get to what they do this short break.
Into the night, the city lights are dancing, slowly falling apart. The shadows causing an outbreak. I'm wishing upon a star. This time I'm feeling stronger, and I know I can do better. The shadows causing an outbreak. I'm turning the light. We're gonna light it up, oh, light it up, light it up, ooh, light it up, light it up.
And just like that, PK have 2-0'd Sanguine. Kind of hard to believe considering how close they are in the standings, how well Sanguine played Phase 1 at the beginning of Phase 2, but kind of looks like they're hitting some stumbling blocks lately. And how about PK turning on the Jets here lately, Cubo? Fred stringing together a couple of really strong games here. Mifflin, really from top to bottom, they were looking strong. Scary T surviving the multi-man gangster in solo. They kind of had it all today.
Man, PK, not a team to take an insult sitting down. They popped off completely. You can't pass over Zatman, the king, one of the elders of the scene, absolutely popping off on Freya. 13 minutes into the game, he walked into the enemy speed buff, killed a dude, and then walked out. Just crime in broad daylight. It's nuts, the things that he's getting away with.
Yeah, that's
right
this. Absolutely nuts. Zatman just walks up to him, kills him, and goes. We're not even 14 minutes into the game yet. My man had hastened in Tier 1 ring to follow it up and just walked in with reckless abandon. A great game from Zatman this time, getting that kill in the Netroid and really never looking back. They all played well here for PK in this one, Mifflin. And Sanguine are kind of looking around, I think, right now, trying to figure out how they get back to form.
Man, Sanguine, it just seems like maybe a little bit rusty. Maybe the break was a little bit harder on them. They didn't really seem like they were playing around the team fight as well as they used to, being the team fight champions that they are. But it seemed like towards the middle part of Game 2, they really got into their groove. Shinto was allowed to sit in the back line.
Yeah.
Yarkor was setting up in the front. Wrong Yu was doing a good job peeling, and Shinto was legitimately just free casting. But the second the Knights realized that and they started to use their dive comp, they got into the back line, looked at Shinto even one time, the entirety of Sanguine just kind of crumbled around them. I just would really like to see them get back to their roots a little bit.
Yeah, even the drafts didn't exactly seem like vintage Sanguine to me. Hard to say vintage. They've only been in the SPL for a year at this point, not even. But certainly that is what it feels like, right? Like they're getting away from a bit of the identity that we knew. But of course, this is just them growing, adding on new layers. Then we'd love to see it. Just want to get them back to a point where they're more consistent. But enough about Sanguine. PK are the team, that team that's feeling good. And Paul is the one that is standing by with Hindi for the interview.
He is. I am joined now by Paul. Paul, congratulations, first of all, on the victory here today. First real question, though, is this is the first time you've beaten a top 4 team since May. Did that factor in for you guys at all? Do you realize that?
Wait, we're top 4?
No. You beat a top 4 team for the first time since May.
Really?
Yeah.
No, I didn't know that. I thought I thought we were winning some games. I guess not.
Well, that's going to be my next question, really, because you guys on PK, honestly, like, you're always very upbeat and, like, kind of chilled out about when things go bad, things go wrong. Like, talk me about what the mentality is like being on this team, because even when things are going bad, you guys seem to be chilling on it. And is this like a vibe because you're world champs or something? You know, you're keeping it all secret and hidden? What's going on?
No, I mean, the regular season games are... They're kind of important for seeding for Worlds and stuff, but like, I don't know, just playing at your best for Worlds is the most important thing. Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, that's fair. Well, talk to me a little bit about that set specifically. Was there a big importance for you guys to beat Sanguine here today? I mean, with Obey and E United winning this week as well, and then that means they're catching you guys in the table a little bit. Did you feel like there was a bit more pressure on you guys this week to perform?
Not really, but I mean, it's nice to beat a good team, looking better for Worlds, so that's pretty nice.
Paul, come on, you got to give me something, dude. You're always so relaxed. How are you always so relaxed? I don't get it. You just won a big game.
I'm just chilling,
I think it was
man.
a big... That's fair. That's fair.
No, I mean, I don't know. I don't know. It's good to win, man. I don't know, man.
Okay, that's fair. Real quick though, set game 2, was that planned in picks and bans, or was that because of the way Sanguine banned against you guys? Is that why we saw that come out today? Because a lot of the fans at home were screaming for the ult pick in mid that we've seen before.
Yeah, no, we thought. I thought for sure they were just gonna ban Purse Hell Hebo, so I'm just like, let's see what they pick, and you know, set might be really sick. And yeah, they picked Thoth and like Nem. Set's got slow immunity in his 3, pretty nice, and he can just get onto the Thoth, so it's a pretty nice pick. And then they just kept banning mages, so I'm just like, okay, just slam me that set.
You're ruining ranked games. That's all I'm gonna say from here on out. So no complaints
good.
from me. So I'm going to say, well, as long as you're happy about it, I guess we get rid of Loki and now we get Set in the mid lane instead. Paul, congratulations on your win here today. Good luck in the rest of the tournament, and we'll look forward to hopefully seeing you at the World Championships. Back to the desk, though, to close out the day.
Always great to get a chance to hear from Paul and how they're feeling. Kind of forget what it's like to hear from Hinderman from time to time as well. So great to have him doing one of those interviews too, Mifflin. This has been a crazy weekend though so far, hasn't it? I mean, you get the United win, the Obey win, Ghost take care of Space Station, Sanguine falling 0-2 to PK. That's not so much of an upset. They are 4-5, but you'd expect it to have been more competitive. PK kind of ran over them there in that set. So far, this has been a crazy weekend. So now when we see United versus Obey tomorrow, I kind of have no idea what to expect from that.
Well, let me tell you what to expect. It's going to be an Obey W, man. Every single time they step up to bat, we expect them to just slam dunk that one in there. But this week has been crazy. Just upsets back-to-back, except that Obey game that was to be expected. I mean, my points are in shatters, man.
Yeah, certainly my predictions are in shatters as well. You won't get anything following along with my predictions. Do your best you can on your own out there, I suppose, here at this point, because it's tough in the SPL right now. But Aggro and I were talking about this just now during that game. We love that we're in a point in the SPL where our predictions can be blown apart any given week, right? When there's upsets happening and unpredictable matches. It's exactly what you want from a competitive league like this, Mil.
It really is. I think when the league is unpredictable, that's when you can really sit down and be like, oh, I wonder what's going to happen. It's like a good soap opera or something along those lines. And the players are continually growing. Every single team is starting to step up to bat. We might see some shifts. PK coming up against Sanguine. That is the first time since May that they were to take out one of the top 4 teams, as Hinderman highlighted earlier. I mean, they're looking a lot better. Obey is stepping up. United makes some straight up improvements to their draft as well. These guys are looking all good.
Basically what we're saying is make sure you're back here tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern because you can't afford to miss any of these games. Thank you for watching today. Thank you to all my other casters, production, for making it happen as well. We had an excellent show here today. Make sure you're here tomorrow, and we'll see you then.